Hello, my friends, and welcome back to a new episode of Let's Talk Elvis.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of the things that happened from my side of the story. There's been a lot written and a lot said about what happened to me, but never from my side.
So in between each health discussions episode, I wanted to do a Q&A just to kind of break up the episodes a little bit, but then also offer up a time for discussion, a time for conversation, a time for education for me and also for you guys who are watching these episodes. Just that time so that we can talk about what we just discussed in the episode that we all just watched. So today we're going to be doing a Q&A. You guys have sent in some questions, some comments, and it doesn't even have to be questions. It can literally just be something that got sparked in your mind or something that you wanted to share. Personal stories. A lot of you guys have shared some personal tales of your own life and similarities that you're seeing in topics that we've discussed or that you've read in various health books about Elvis Presley, and that's kind of what I want to bring into the series too. I want to bring in that kind of conversation so that we can all collectively be on the same page and just discuss and have a conversation about what we're talking about. So anyways, with all that said, this is going to be very informal. It's just going to be talking, discussing some, thoughts that I have, thoughts you guys have, just like I said, about episode 2. So episode 2 was all about Elvis's genetics and family tree. Obviously not as extensive as it does go, but what could fit in a bite-sized chunk of the episode I made. It was 12 minutes long, so I fit in what I could talk about, what I thought was relevant as far as where I'm taking the series. So yes, all of that to say, we're going to be talking about episode 2 today before we move on to episode 3. I'm literally going to be just reading verbatim some of the comments and messages that I got, things like that from Instagram and YouTube, from you guys, so that I could just add in my 2 cents, take notes, because also I want you guys to know, through this whole process, I'm still learning. I think that I know I'm not a doctor. I am not a physician. I'm not trained. I am only as good as my research. And I think research is a daily thing, especially when it comes to this kind of topic of genetics and health and drug use and things like that. You are always constantly learning and always constantly applying what you're learning to the work that you're doing. So I think as much as you guys are learning through this, I'm also learning, and I don't want to be thought of as an expert on this because I'm not. All I've done is read and researched and studied because it's a topic that I am extremely passionate about, and I just think that it really matters a lot when we're talking about Elvis and his story and the Elvis I'm interested in, which is the human being Elvis, the man behind the image type of thing. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there. Okay, somebody asked if I read Matthew Perry's biography about his life. They said when he wrote about his constipation problem and the extreme pain and life-threatening situation, it really made me feel sorry for him and Elvis, because as I understand, Elvis must have experienced something similar as Matthew did. I did read Matthew's book. I thought it was an amazing book that touches on the humanity outside of somebody with a drug issue. I thought it was very, very well written, obviously, because it's written by somebody who lived through it. I think if Elvis could have written a book in his end of life times, it could possibly be very similar. It makes you a lot more empathetic to the situation, and I really had a lot more respect for Matthew after reading his book, because you were able to understand a lot more of the choices that he made, a lot more of his life in general, and the ups and the downs. And I think that that's something that I wish Elvis could have had the opportunity to do. But yeah, I think, health-wise, Matthew Perry, I think, was dealing with some things as well. And obviously Elvis was dealing with things outside of having a drug issue. You have to think back to the very first episode I made was all about behavior, the whys, because that is the root of what we're focusing on here with this series. It's yes, Elvis took drugs. That's not a that's not an opinion. It's something that can't be negated. It's a fact. So that's something that'll never change. But you have to understand why he was taking them in the first place. Was he taking them to feel a high because he didn't care? Or he wanted to escape life? Was he taking them because he didn't feel good? Was it a combination of both? Was he trying to escape because he didn't feel good? It's like all of these things. And I think, yeah, reading Matthew's book definitely helped me kind of, again, be more empathetic to what he was going through and why he literally was dependent on drugs. And that's very similar to Elvis's case too. Yes, he was dependent on drugs, but why? Someone said, oh, Michelle, my friend Michelle said, amazing episode, really interesting. Elvis's eyes and his mother's eyes, such an interesting point. His skin I'd never say was good, with acne and deep potholes plaguing him, but I've never thought of wrinkles and collagen. Makes you think, and I want to research it further. I love videos that get you thinking deeper. Thank you. I hope, like, that is my goal with these. So thank you, Michelle. That means so much to me and like this whole series. But yeah, the way you brought that up too, that makes me think back, because in the last episode we were talking about his skin and that collagen disorder that Forrest Tennant shares in his book, how Elvis had this like smooth, like wrinkle free kind of skin. Even, I guess I was thinking more of like in the 40s, in the 40s, girl, in his 40s, in the 70s, when you look at him and, you know, his skin really was really good for a 40-year-old guy, as far as like wrinkles and fine lines and things like that. But you do have to think back to in the 50s, he did struggle with acne and things like that. But yeah, that collagen, I guess, really wouldn't affect acne. It's a completely different thing, right? It's like the elasticity in your skin. So that's a really good point that you made about his skin. And obviously his eyes and his mother's eyes, yeah. And if you look at Doll, pictures of Doll, her eyes are the exact same way, those dark sunken in eyes. Yeah, it was interesting to see those correlations and like, oh, I've never really thought about it in that way before, but when you look at it, the evidence, it's like, yeah, that is true. If the topic of Elvis's health and the health of his family members is to be fully understood, then the roots of unproven concepts need to be pulled up. Anyone hooked on blaming genetics and or disease are missing the actual facts. Satisfaction in books such as Destined to Die Young is misplaced. I'm just reading the whole thing at this point because now I'm hooked. Begin from a place of what we know to be true, not what you believe. The misconceptions are leading you astray. You will find what you're looking for when you begin to question the answers you have already embraced as truth. Okay, so then they offer up some questions like, what is disease? What causes tuberculosis? And he says, eliminate genetics and disease from the investigation or you'll never find the answers you so obviously desire. And that goes for all of you, whether you've published a book or not. Okay, I understand what you're saying. I do. I think that you have to remember this though, when you're reading Destined to Die Young or any book such as this, if it's not completely stated that it is fact, because you will read things from the autopsy, that is fact. You'll read things from Forrest Tennant's book, a lot about the autopsies in there because he was actually the person that was working on those, like he was involved in the court case with Dr. Nick and things like this, so he was working a lot with the autopsy. So you have to pay attention to when they're providing things that are exact evidence and when things that are speculation but based on logic, based on logical thinking. And I think what's important to remember is some of the things we'll never know. Some of the things are not proven and things that we can only guess given the puzzle pieces that we have, right? So we might not ever know for fact if Doll had tuberculosis and died of tuberculosis, but it makes a little bit more sense to be thinking logically in the sense of, did she have another disease or did she actually have tuberculosis for 30 years, right? Like, there's just some things that you have to remember. In the 1900s, early 1900s, they knew significantly less than we do today in terms of medical education and fact and theory and all these things. Not saying they knew nothing, but they knew significantly less. I mean, if you think about it, they didn't even know smoking was bad for you. Like, they didn't even advertise that smoking could cause cancer until like mid-century, if even that, a little bit later. So you have to think of those things. Like, Elvis, a lot of the stuff that he was going through, he didn't have answers for. He was being tested, he was being questioned, he was going through all of these like crazy like new experimental like treatments and all these things, because they were like, what's going on, girl? We can't figure it out. So you have to remember that asking questions is how we learn, right? Accepting things when they don't make sense is not how we learn, and it's not how understanding comes about. I do understand you though when you're saying like that we can't take things for actual fact, because you're right, we can't. The author of Destined to Die Young is not a medical practitioner, but she is a researcher and she's a journalist. Also brought up like questions like, what causes tuberculosis? What is disease defined as? And those are very good questions to be asking, because like I'm saying, we learn through asking those questions and thinking of things like, oh, here's puzzle pieces, here's evidence, this is fact, this is fact, this is fact. So what can we maybe assume because we're looking at the facts, you know? I do disagree though with the part where we're talking about eliminating genetics, because quite literally, I mean, genetics matters. Genetics matters in anybody. It matters in me and what I'm going through. If I go to the doctor right now and say I have this issue, they're going to ask me family history in terms of medical things, medical issues. Inherited things are things in your body, things that's a part of your DNA and chemical makeup that you cannot change in most cases, or things that require treatment, or things that require, you know, close attention being paid to them so that your quality of life is as good as it can be, you know? So I think, especially in Elvis's case, there's so much genetically impacted within him that we can't ignore it. It's literally not acceptable to ignore the genetic issues that Elvis had that we know are facts, because if we look back and we look at the family history, we can see that something wasn't right from the very beginning, you know? And also with just Elvis himself, you can look and see that he has all these diseases and disorders, that 5 of them, again, were present since he was born. That means that drugs did not cause those. He was born with those. That means they came from his family tree, right? So I don't think that we can eliminate genetics in any sense for anybody. I think if we're looking at health history for anybody, genetics has to be a part of that. And I guess you could disagree. That's just my standpoint. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical practitioner. I just am a researcher, and that's it. And I know for a fact that I would not understand half of the things that I understand about Elvis if it weren't for looking at his genetic history and genetic makeup. I think it's so important. And I think it's a disservice to him or to anyone to ignore that, because that impacts so much of your health. So yeah, that's what I want to say about that one. But we'll leave that go for now. Glad to see you again. I think several factors are involved: genetics, lifestyle, and stress related to extraordinary celebrity self-medication. Elvis cannot be considered a medicine cabinet for pleasure. Agree. I personally agree with that. I know people might disagree with that he took drugs mainly for pleasure. I don't agree, because I know better. But I agree with you. I think there's so many things involved. Genetics aren't the only thing. It's also lifestyle. It's also diet. It's also, like you saying, stress from being in the public eye. I think that played a massive part in why Elvis took prescription medication. It was that like struggle to stay at the top, and also knowing he's judged. He's judged in every step that he makes. Every step, every action he took, every time he came out on that stage looking a certain way, acting a certain way, speaking a certain way, he's being judged, he's being criticized, he's being written about in tabloids and in newspapers. It's very stressful, something that I can't even begin to imagine, you know? And then also, while not knowing exactly what's causing you to feel the way that you're feeling. And yeah, I totally agree with you. So glad you're back, and this topic is going to be very educational. I'm very interested and grateful you are discussing his genetic history. Thank you. Thank you so much for being willing to stick around and come along on this journey with me and with everybody else. I think Elvis deserves a series like this so much, because I sound like a broken record, but I don't think we'll ever fully understand Elvis fully. I'm talking Elvis Aaron Presley, until we understand what that man was going through internally, because that is such a big answer, you know, mentally, physically, spiritually. Like, that's the holy trinity of what we should be paying attention to, right? Thank you for going through the subject of Elvis's life and death with us. Even though it's been years since Sally's book was published, drugs still come up as Elvis's leading cause of death. I suppose it's because all the new fans are still looking for answers. It's very sad that Elvis's story keeps coming back to the same conclusion. As a medically trained person, I've studied the facts, the history of the day, and those surrounding it, including genetics. Let's let the facts lead the way. Love this. Love it coming from somebody who has a medical background history. Thank you for adding into the conversation, because your voice totally matters here. And yeah, it's crazy that people just blame the drugs, blanket blame game, and just say, drug addict, he died because he was a drug addict. It's like, there's so much more. There's so much more to the story, and dumbing it down to he was just a drug addict is crazy to me. It is crazy to me. So unfair to him, and so unfair to the life that he lived and the life that he strived to live. I do think it's a good thing that new fans are looking for answers. I think the movie really was a stepping stone in terms of that, in terms of new fans coming into the community going like, what really happened here? Like, not even with just medication, but, you know, with the Colonel and with his relationships and with, you know, his career. There's a lot of questions being asked and researched right now, and I think now's a great time to be talking about all of this, because people are looking for answers. There are a lot of new fans because of the movie, new fans, you know, a couple years in. But, you know, I was a fan my whole life and didn't even begin to understand his medical history until like 2021. So I was like 20 years old, just going like, you know what? This makes so much sense to me. So yeah, I think people are listening right now, which is why having these conversations is super, super helpful. This is definitely something I'm very interested in. I am of the opinion that Elvis became dependent on medication because he needed it for multiple health issues. I think there were probably some abuse of amphetamines and sleeping pills in the 60s, but by the 70s, I think Elvis was taking large amounts of painkillers and sleeping pills because he really did need them, in my opinion only. Yeah, of course, like, there's only so much that we could say here outside of opinion, because we weren't him. We weren't there. We were not him. We weren't living what he was feeling, you know? So we can only look back. But I want to do a episode all about where that sleep medication started, because so many people think that he started taking the sleeping pills in the Army because of the shifts and the long hours and whatever. That's the narrative that's been pushed as far as Elvis's, like, where Elvis's drug history started. It started way before that. It started in the 50s. It started when his career first started out, and he was he was a young kid playing intimate venues, but touring around and having to sleep crazy hours. And also, he was somebody whose mind I literally just posted about this the other day on Instagram, but his mind was just constantly turning. His mind never shut off. He was always going, always thinking, always planning. And so his insomnia literally started in the 50s. Like, when he first started, his life, like, completely exploded. and he wasn't sleeping, and he was touring, and he was performing, and his life just got crazy. And there's multiple, and I'll go into more detail about this in the episode, but there's multiple accounts of people talking about how he was fidgety. You know, we always look at him and his shaky leg and his, you know, how he couldn't ever stand still. He talks about it, how he can't stand still, and music just does something to him, and he's always moving, right? But we have these accounts of him even pre-performance career, where he was fidgety, he couldn't sit still, he was always shaking his legs, he was always tapping his feet, he was always, you know, he was getting antsy when he had to sit for long periods of time. Like, it goes way far back, right? Way far back before the army. So yeah, I think when he started taking that drug, which I will go into detail more when we talk about his insomnia in detail in length or whatever, but when he started taking that drug, I think that's when it cemented in his head, like, oh, there's a pill I could take and it can help me. You have to remember that he grew up in the poor, deep South, in poverty, without access to good medical care. And so when he was able to, like, when he got the desk reference, the physician's desk reference, he started studying that, I think it opened up a gateway that he didn't even know existed. He was like, so if I'm having this issue, there's a medicine that could help me. And in his head, it was like, it's a medicine. It's from a doctor, and it must be okay because it's from a doctor, and I can take that and it can help me. It can help me sleep. It can help me calm down. It can help me lose weight. It can help me tan. It can help me, like, all of these things. But yes, starting from, I'm getting off on a tangent, but you do have to look at it that way, you know, as far as sleeping pills. Yeah, I think he was taking a lot of the stuff because he really did need it, not just because he was fooling around. You know what I mean? I think there are some things, not saying he just, like, he did dabble. We know he dabbled in psychedelics and things like that, but they weren't things that he enjoyed. He would, like, try them to see what the fuss is about, and then he would not be doing them on the daily. Like, that wasn't something that he wanted or relied on. You know what I mean? Prescription meds, needed those. He needed those to function. So that all goes back to the why. Why did he need it? You know, what was going on that he felt like he needed it? Anyway, that was such a long-winded answer, but I totally agree with you. I think that he was taking large amounts because your body, you know, number one, develops a, what's the word? They get used to it. They get, you probably could think of the word I'm thinking of, but your body gets used to, medications and things that you're doing regularly. It becomes, you know, used to those things. So at a certain time he needed to up the dosages because his body needed more. It was, you know, it was dependent on it. So yeah, long-winded answer to your comment, but thank you for sharing, because so much of that is so true and needs to be talked about. All right, my friends, this episode is long, honestly, but I enjoyed sitting down and making it. I hope you guys, again, like, I hope the conversation is sparked. I hope we're learning things. I know I am, and I love hearing from you guys and being able to think and get the wheels turning. I know I have long-winded answers to a lot of things, but I don't know. I just think everything is valuable and important when it comes to talking about things like this. Even if you don't agree with me, that's okay. You don't have to. Like, I literally cannot force anybody to agree with what I'm saying or think the way I think, but again, I'm leading with an open mind. I hope you will as well, and all for the same hopefully all for the same common goal of bringing justice to somebody's life that deserves it, because he changed so much of the world and changed so many lives, including my own, that I just feel like, you know, he deserves it. He doesn't need anything. He's resting happily. He's resting peacefully. But I do think he deserves at least the conversation, at least the effort of going into this and asking the questions and trying to dig up that justice for his life. But yeah, anyway, I will be back soon with episode 3. We're going to be talking about something completely new, asking some more questions, and I hope you guys are going to be around for it. I know I'm really excited, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little Q&A session. Hope it was helpful, and yeah, I will talk to you guys in the next episode. All right, see you guys later. Bye.